Will Thursday's elections be a watershed moment for Bangladesh? Millions of people are expected to cast ballots in the first polls since long-term Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was removed in 2024. But can the vote spark a real political transition for the country's democracy? This is Inside Story. Hello again, I'm James Bays. Following weeks of demonstrations in August 2024, millions of young protesters in Bangladesh managed to topple the government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who'd ruled in an increasingly authoritarian way. After a transitional period, voters there will now cast ballots in general elections and a constitutional referendum. And many hope Thursday's poll will transform the energy of those mass demonstrations into real political change and consolidate the foundations of democracy in Bangladesh. But after decades of political instability, just how much of a challenge will that be? We'll talk to our panel of guests in a moment. But first, this report from Imogen Kimber.
It's been a time of change for young people in Dhaka. In August 2024, students brought about the end of Sheikh Hasina's 15-year rule as Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Following the popular uprising, many youth will cast ballots for the first time. Around a third of the voters are under 30. That's approximately 40 million people. Some are cautiously optimistic.
This election is important because we are going through a transitory period. We are shifting from a revolution to a stable situation. So to bring stability, we need an elected government.
Dhaka's streets have been filled with rallying political parties.
Our favourite leader, Ashikur Rahman, is coming here. We're going to have a fair election, and we are finally in a situation where we can hope for something better, where we can all work together to make this country better.
The decades-old Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or BNP, is the frontrunner in the election. Its formerly exiled leader, Ashikur Rahman, is the son of Bangladesh's first woman Prime Minister, Khalida Zia. The party's biggest competition is the Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami.
I'm a first-time voter, and I hope this time Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami will win with a majority.
But some students say neither of these established political parties can offer the change they hoped for. After the uprising, student leaders created the National Citizen Party, or NCP. But when some of the party leaders decided to team up with Jamaat-e-Islami, they were disappointed.
The July uprising provided a window to enter politics and shape our political culture. But when NCP aligned with the old political forces, I struggled to see how a new political culture could genuinely thrive within that framework.
And there are those from the party of the ousted Sheikh Hasina, the Awami League, who say they aren't being represented.
We won't even go to the polling center in the election because the Awami League is not participating. I have supported the Awami League my whole life, and I still do. I don't believe the election has any credibility.
And 150,000 police will be on duty to try and ensure the election goes ahead. Bangladesh's police chief says half the polling stations are vulnerable to violence, something that has marred previous elections. But even if all goes as planned, many Bangladeshis are questioning whether this election will bring any change. Imogen Kimber, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Well, let's discuss all of this now with our guests today on Inside Story. From Dhaka, the Bangladeshi capital, we're joined by Ashikur Rahman. He's a political analyst and principal economist at the Policy Research Institute of Bangladesh. In the north of Bangladesh, in Sunamganj, we have Prapti Taposhi. She's an activist and first-time voter in these general elections. And also in Dhaka, Thomas Kean. He's a senior consultant for Myanmar and Bangladesh at the International Crisis Group. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us here on Inside Story. So, Prapti, let me start with you. 173 million people in Bangladesh, up to 127 million. It's a huge number going to be casting their vote. You're going to be casting your vote for the first time in this election. In your view, what's at stake?
Particularly, this is my first time voting in any national election. And pardon me for my voice. I lost my voice while protesting in last Sunday. So you asked me what are at stake. If I can move back to 2024, the mass uprising, well, we lost many things. The most importantly, we lost our friends, we lost innocent citizens, we lost innocent people of Bangladesh. And now, when we are moving forward to a path of democracy, finally we will be able to get a proper and elected government.
Okay,
Finally,
Prapti, let me just interrupt you for a moment, because it's interesting you tell us you've lost your voice because you've been protesting. You, in August 2024, you got what you wanted. You got Sheikh Hasina's government out of power, and now you've got a path to elections which are now taking place. Why have you still been protesting in recent days?
Excellent question. Because the dreams we had while protesting in July and August 2024, we thought that when we will outcast Sheikh Hasina, we will have a country, we will have a state, we will have a government that will include everybody. But throughout this interim period, we saw that the interim government did not really meet our dreams. Not only they meet our dreams, but also they have, I would say that we are heartbroken. I personally am heartbroken because the protest I was on last Sunday, it was organized by the women activists of Bangladesh. And we protested because we feel that the women of Bangladesh are still not be able to practice their social, civic, and democratic rights. And in the national campaign, in the political campaign, we are observing various negative remarks about women, various degrading remarks against women. And the government, let alone the advisors, let alone the election commission, nobody really take any proper or any action against those remarks or anything. So it is a matter of, it is a situation of heartbreak. And as you asked that why are we protesting? Not only it's because the women of the country. I come from a minority religion community. I am a Hindu in Bangladesh. So after the interim period, in the interim government, we have observed various mob violences. We have observed various hate speeches. We have observed various killing. We have experienced that there were killing of an innocent man. He was burned in and everyone videotaped his burning. So these kind of atrocities, we thought that these atrocities, these crimes, these patriarchal remarks, these misogynist remarks, this will end with the end of the autocrat government, but It did not end.
Prapti, thank you. So there you have Prapti, Ashikur, who is one of these new voters. And I think it's worth stressing how young the population in Bangladesh is. I mean, I was looking at this and looking at my old notes because I've covered Bangladesh before, but I haven't been there since the election of 2008. I decided to Google how many people have been born since 2008. It's 60 million people. I mean, the youth are key in all of this, aren't they?
I think the young people will determine who gets to sit on the top. And I echo the frustrations of the speaker, but to put everything under context. I mean, if you take a bigger, longer view, Bangladesh, 1971, was founded on a democratic promise. In 1991, we ended military rule, and there was a democratic promise. And 2024 and 2026, we again have a democratic promise. So the one thing that we have learned, I think, over the last 55 years, that elections and regime change on their own don't create real democratic opening. I think this is the bigger question that we have to ask at this point, that how do we create a sustainable democratic opening? And without changing the rules of the game, without changing a winner-takes-all political architecture, and without ending the notion that retribution is political justice, I don't think you can craft that new sustainable democratic opening. So yes, aspirations are very high, and people do feel that the moderate party, maybe BNP, has an edge in this election, but it will be dependent on whether they ground their politics in governance, in social justice, in serious political reconciliation, and creating real opportunities, inclusive opportunities for the young people. I mean, let's not mistake. I think the moderates, parties like Awami League or BNP, have been running the show for 55 years.
Okay,
now,
let me stop you there, Ashikur, because that's what I wanted to come to Thomas to do for us. Thomas, perhaps you can, it's difficult in one answer, but give us some of the context for this. As Ashikur said, you had initially military rule in Bangladesh. Then from the early 90s, you had a situation where you had two ladies in power, battling ladies, flip-flopping. And then one of those ladies in that election I mentioned in 2008 took power and has been in power ever since she was toppled in August 2024. I mean, has there been real democracy in Bangladesh until now?
Well, I would say there's been electoral democracy at times in Bangladesh. There has been elections, credible elections, but I'm not sure that a democratic culture has necessarily taken root. Certainly what we see is that people are very eager to vote, but Bangladesh hasn't built the institutions to protect its democracy from autocratic tendencies. One of the mechanisms that was introduced to try to ensure credible elections in Bangladesh was the caretaker government, and that was introduced for the 1991 election, that transition. And that helped to ensure some credible elections through the 1990s and 2000s. But after the 2008 election that you mentioned earlier, Sheikh Hasina and the Awami League used their supermajority in parliament to remove the caretaker government from the constitution. And that enabled Sheikh Hasina to control Bangladesh for 15 years. It wasn't the only factor, but it enabled her to navigate 3 elections, to hold 3 essentially sham elections, and to remain in power for 15 years. Well, when we talk about some of the changing the rules of the game, one of the key changes that has been debated and discussed is to introduce proportional representation in a new upper house of parliament. And the idea behind that is that even if a party got a supermajority in the lower house to change the constitution, they would still need to negotiate with other parties in the upper house. And this is a key division between the major parties that are contesting the election.
And I guess that's important, Thomas, because that is the key part, I think, of this referendum, because it's not just an election, there is a referendum on these new measures that is taking place simultaneously. Prapti, let's move to briefly discuss the woman who ruled your country until August 2024, Sheikh Hasina. She has a death sentence, but of course she is in exile in India. It begs the question, what about her party, the Awami League? Because that's been outlawed, and yet that used to get lots and lots of votes. What about those people who used to vote for the Awami League? I mean, where is their new home, do you think?
Particularly, we all, the protesters who were active in the mass uprising of July and August 2024, we asked for a proper truth and reconciliation system. Something related, we have observed in different countries that these type of truth and reconciliation mission were established to finally get proper peace and justice. Justice is very important because when you do not give proper justice to all those atrocities, to all those crimes against humanities that the former Prime Minister, autocratic and killer Sheikh Hasina, she committed to our country, then you do not give justice to the whole population of our country. But then again, in terms of giving justice, you also need to be very accountable and proper and transparent in such a way that your process of ensuring justice do not get questioned in further future. But we are anxious. I am anxious because the way we are leaning towards justice, it is not the proper way. because, while she's in exile, as all of you already know, that she's still in India, and she's not coming back to our country. So there's little that our country can do than asking India to give her back. But as she is not coming back, then how there are huge followers in Bangladesh who supported Awami League, and not only they supported all of the atrocities, but they supported Sheikh Hasina's different development mega project that she used to gain people's sympathy, those as well. But the way that we are leading towards justice, it might be questioned in the future, because we have been observing numerous false cases were given to innocent people in the cases of the mass uprising. We have been observing that people were being detained falsely and wrongly. They were being accused, and they are still not giving their bail are not being granted falsely, because there are a pressure. There is obviously this is obviously the most populist move to ban Awami League and to ban the ideologies that you cannot utter the name of Sheikh Hasina. Understand that I saw people dying in front of my eyes. So I understand what kind of atrocity and what kind of a monster she is. But then again, we cannot give innocent people any kind of sufferings or any kind of punishment in order to ensure justice. Justice should be for anyone and everyone.
Let me bring Ashikur in on this. So Ashikur, Prapti and many, many others, the students, led the protests. The army then decided it was no longer going to support Sheikh Hasina. And the young people then put their trust in 85-year-old chief advisor Muhammad Yunus, Nobel laureate. His government's been running the country ever since. Certainly Prapti is critical. Are you as critical of the interim government, or have they done the best job they could have done in difficult circumstances to create a path to what we're now seeing, which is Bangladeshis voting again?
Well, my answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that when they came in, the economy was in a very bad shape. And I think they did stabilize. The banking sector was almost on the verge of collapse. Our foreign reserves were collapsing. So I think they did quite a decent job in terms of stabilizing the exchange rate, stabilizing the economy. But when it came to the political arena, the expectation was that something along the lines of South Africa will be achieved, where reform, justice, and reconciliation will be followed by an inclusive election, which will let the country heal finally. I think, my memory goes to 1991, and I have seen this bad movie for 35 straight years, where the protagonist changes and retribution is seen as political justice by the victor. So this mindset of weaponizing the judiciary did not really change over the last 55 years. And I don't think, that is why I do feel that elections on their own don't create democratic opening. I think if on the 13th of Feb, whoever inherits, if they really care about democratic opening, a culture of political tolerance must take precedent. You must allow the country to heal. Justice is necessary, so is reconciliation. And you cannot exclude or disenfranchise 30% people with their political identity, citing very legitimate crimes. But that's not the way 180 million people can craft a stable, inclusive future. So
okay, let me bring in Thomas, if I may. Thomas, so reconciliation, you're hearing from Ashikur, is needed, but for now, the Awami League are not allowed to, in any way, to take part in this election. They were one of the two parties that in recent years have been the big players in Bangladesh. They were led by Sheikh Hasina. The other party was the BNP, the Bangladesh National Party, led by Khaleda Zia. She was the long-term other lady in Bangladesh's politics. She happened to die on the last day of last year, but her party is now going to be led by her son, Tariq Rahman, who's returned to Bangladesh. I mean, are they the likely victor in this election, do you think?
Well, it's a big question, obviously. I think this is a very difficult election to predict the outcome. There is a wide range of potential outcomes for a number of reasons. One is the first past the post system, which in Bangladesh since 1990 has tended to create supermajorities, even when the two major parties get a similar share of the vote. We've seen this several times. And so we could see that phenomenon again. We don't know how Awami League supporters will vote, if they indeed vote, who they will vote for. There are also, the BNP is facing rebel candidates in quite a number of seats that could split its vote and open the door for the Islamist party, Jamaat-e-Islami. And we don't know how young people will vote.
Okay.
There are 40 million people
Thomas,
who haven't voted before.
on the BNP, so you have Khaleda Zia's son, Tariq Rahman, who is returned to Bangladesh. I'm aware that there are allegations in the past, when his mother was in charge, of corruption. Do you think it helps him coming from abroad, being the outsider, or is that a negative factor for him if he wants to be the new Prime Minister?
So Tariq Rahman, I think, is not seen as an outsider in this election. The BNP and Tariq Rahman are seen as the establishment by most people. They're considered the safe option. And it's really Jamaat, the Islamist party, that's seen as the outsider. Well, Tariq Rahman has been outside the country for 17 years. Since his mother was placed under house arrest in 2018, he has been effectively running the party from abroad and has been very politically engaged with the party's grassroots activists and has a strong grip on the party. So it was no surprise that when Khaleda Zia passed, that he would assume the role of chairman. But I think, in this election, he is seen as the front runner, the prime minister in waiting, and he is the establishment candidate, even though he has been outside the country for 17 years. He is political royalty in Bangladesh as well, as the son of, one of the former prime ministers.
So, Prapti, we mentioned the Bangladesh National Party, and Thomas there also mentioned the main rival, Jamaat-e-Islami, which is the main Islamic party in Bangladesh. They did a deal with the National Citizen Party, which is the student party that came out of your student protests, but that splintered as well, didn't it? Lots of the students didn't like that idea. How do you feel about this party, given that you are a Hindu?
Thanks for your question. Particularly when the student leaders of the uprising, they formed a new political party named National Citizen Party. Most of the people of Bangladesh who were looking for a change, in July and August, we used to say that we do not want to be inside that binary game again. We want something new. So everybody was looking for a change. And when they formed that party, we were really looking forward to it. We were really keen to observe that what do they have in mind. But when the elections were approaching, at first they had said that they will not make any alliance with any of the big political parties, and people had seemed to believe them. But soon the elections approached. They moved to Jamaat-e-Islami. They formed an alliance with Jamaat-e-Islami. So particularly, not only I say that being a Hindu, not only I say that being a woman, I say that being a frontliner, I say that being a leader of the mass uprising, that this is not only saddening, this is not only, I would say that dissatisfaction, this is betrayal. They clearly betrayed us because we wanted something new, and the idea of forming a new political party, it has emerged as forming something new. But when you make an alliance with the Islamist party, which leaders are saying publicly that women cannot be their party leaders, which party leaders are saying publicly that no matter whichever religion a woman belongs from, she should wear modest clothes and she should cover herself. So we did not cover ourselves in July and August. We did not cover ourselves in the mass uprising. And nobody cared what I wore. Nobody cared if I had taken my scarves or not. But now as the elections are approaching, because of the populist game, because of some vote, they just formed an alliance. So what were at the stake? Give me, I would say, I just want to say one line that even if they had not gotten one seat, even if had they gotten very few votes in this election, I still think that they would still have to show that courage to the people, to the world.
OK. Ashikur, when you look at Bangladesh, we mustn't forget, we don't have much time to discuss it, the economy of this country, which is a key player in the global garment industry. That is the 80% of Bangladesh's exports. And even during the dark times, Bangladesh was a country where its GDP was growing. Are you optimistic in economic terms?
Well, in terms of our short-term stimuli, yes, the elected government will be probably more conducive to private investment. But at the end of the day, we had an event the other day where our think tank basically said that what we need is commitment to bold economic reforms, not from day 2, not from day 3, but from day 1. Because our fiscal space and our monetary space are both under very tight pressure. We are not spending enough on health and education. We don't have the tax base to invest in our future capacities. So we need strong reforms both in the fiscal avenue and in the financial sector, which was plundered by economic oligarchs. I mean, $20 billion were looted from our banking sector. So BNP, they have my sympathy in that way. If they win, they are inheriting an economy which is stable but very fragile, and people have very high expectations. So if they don't boldly commit to economic reform,
we'll have to hope that high expectations are met. My experience of Bangladesh, my visits there, a very chaotic and noisy place, but such hard-working, friendly people who deserve better. Thank you to our guests today, Ashikur Rahman, Prapti Taposhi and Thomas Kean. Al Jazeera's teams are on the ground to cover the election. And as the results come in, go to our website, aljazeera.com, for context and analysis. We want to hear from you, particularly our viewers in Bangladesh. Go to our Facebook page, that's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or use X. Tag us with your comment at AJ Inside Story. For now, that's it from me, James Bays. On behalf of all the team, please keep yourself safe and well. Bye-bye for now.